Welcome everyone back to the NAV Lab. Today we have Eddie Johnson, former NFL football player, actor, snowboarding extremist, an all-around great guy, great agent. Eddie, why don't you introduce yourself to the world?
Hey, if I had a moment to tap dance after that intro, I would do it. But this just isn't the right kind of floor for it. Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here, and I appreciate any opportunity to come to the office since it's not very often. I work from home, nomad, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got to NAV Real Estate.
Yeah, how did I navigate to NAV Real Estate? Yeah, so I'm from Southern California. Grew up in Orange County, down Newport Beach, and was like, this beach living is just too comfortable and relaxing for me. And I had an epiphany one day. I saw the older guys at the bars, and they're on their beach cruisers riding the boardwalk, and I said, I got to get out of here, man, or else I'm gonna be one of those guys. Because it's a Peter Pan lifestyle you could do forever.
Okay.
But I got out of there, and I've always wanted to come to the mountains. And my mom used to bring me out here in high school to go skiing. So back in the 90s, just doing it, coming out here and going to Vail, going to Breck, Keystone. And then, when I was in high school, I knew that I was getting some attention for football. I really wanted to go to Boulder. I was like, see, Boulder, I ski, snowboard, whatever. The mountains are beautiful. And, I wasn't a surfer, even though I grew up by the beach. I wasn't a surfer, so that didn't really attract me. But I've always been attracted to the mountains. And so I was getting ready to come out of junior college. And I remember sending my old VHS highlight tape out. And I sent it to all these different schools. But I was really wanting to hear back from Boulder, And keep in mind, I knew I had opportunities before that I kind of blew in high school, but I had opportunities to be a 4-year starter. So I knew I could play anywhere. And they're like, yeah, hey, we'd love to have you. Just come on out here and walk on. It's like, I don't have any money for that, So I ended up going to Idaho State, which is another, more country, the Big Sky Conference, loved it. Mountains, snowboarding, outdoor activity. It was a good place to go. And, but somehow I just kept thinking about Colorado all these years. And when I got done pursuing football and chasing my dream, and I was, I think 30 when I finally had to quit, pursuing football up in Canada because of injuries. I kind of bounced around for a while, and I was bartending in Vegas, just trying to figure my life out. And then a friend of mine got into the automotive hail restoration business, and he's like, hey, and I wasn't digging Vegas. At that point, I had seen behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz, and I did not like what they were selling. So I got out of there, and my buddy of mine was working in Oklahoma City, and went out to work this storm that hit. And while I was out there, we had another storm come through, and an F5 tornado came through in 2013, destroyed one of our satellite shops we had, and spent about 7 months in OKC. That's about the extent of my journey in OKC. But came back, eventually it hailed in Colorado. I also was I moved out to LA half the year and was trying to pursue acting, writing, whatever, and had some success in commercials, could not sniff an audition for theatrical. And it just was too tough for me to make a living there and come out here. And then right when the pandemic hit, I was, I got rid of my apartment in Marina Del Rey, moved out here full time. And my now wife...
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Doing adult things,
Yep.
She knew Monica from, previous, her previous relationship when she was living in Golden. She had, I think, went to where Monica used to work and knew her.
Yep.
And had just randomly called her one day, and then Monica talked about how great NAV was because Meg had just gotten a real estate license. She did it while the pandemic was happening. And I was still trying to make things happen with hail. We didn't get any hailstorms, though, for a good 3 years here. It just hailed recently, but it just stopped hailing. And I wasn't going to travel to a place like OKC again, so I'll just go get my real estate license. She convinced me. She talked me into it. And sure enough, I came and met with you that December, I think, when she came in. Got my license like 30, 45 days later, and then came on the team. And here we are at NAV Real Estate. No looking back.
That was a great story. So you skipped over the NFL.
Yeah, okay. So I went to college and really focused, my junior and senior year after coming out of, I was living, in my hometown, going to junior college, and had a fake ID, was like living with a 25-year-old Italian bodybuilder who was hilarious. And it was just like, I was running the streets, so I wasn't very focused in junior college. But once I got my scholarship and went to Idaho State, I was really able just to focus in because there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on in that town besides sports for me.
Yeah.
It's a very LDS town. It wasn't like there was a whole lot of places where you get into trouble like an ASU or San Diego State or something. So I just focused. I barely ever drank. I just was determined to kind of see through my potential, and ended up having a bunch of scouts come out, which is a trek to Pocatello.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get to. You're jumping on a puddle jumper. But ended up building a name for myself, became an All-American that first year, my junior year, and then had a lot of steam going to my senior year, had a good senior year too, was still like a second or third team All-American. We had some good punters in that 1AA. And actually 2 of us got drafted from 1AA. So Mike and then myself. And just focused on that. I was really only in school for about a year and a half, and then I had to go train for the combine. So I got invited to the combine. I think it was like 14 of us that went. They, closed down shop in Idaho, decided to go back to California to train. And then, was fortunate enough to go do my thing, get drafted by Minnesota. And, I ended up going to the Vikings in the 6th round. And, I went there and, didn't go quite like I wanted it to. It wasn't quite, it was frustrating for me because I had some stuff happen that I just couldn't work my way out of, right? Like I developed like some weird hitch in my step. And then anyways, sometimes, when I'm combing my hair, a little tear comes out. But I was there for about a year and then bounced around the league a little bit and ended up being away from it for a while. I was trying to figure out through this like psychological like hitch that I picked up. And I was at that point where I was like talking to my buddies. It's like, dude, I would rub cat poop on my leg, or, I would eat it if that made me better, and got through this. And so I exhausted all options, and I finally worked with a sports hypnotherapist. And I was like, that's woo-woo. I don't believe in any of that stuff. And, there is something to that. If you look at most sports psychology books, it's all about your conscious mind. And, you could sit there and say, yes, I'm going to be this and have your affirmations, and I'm going to get in the game and I'm going to do all this stuff. But that's not your conscious mind that trips you up. It's your subconscious mind that talks to you. It's the doubt, it's the fear, it's the things, that make you nervous. And so what's cool about hypnotherapy, and I totally recommend it for folks if you get with a good practitioner, but you basically just relax and you listen to tapes. And they kind of work with you on what you need to work through. And they try to dig out like what your self-talk is like subconsciously, right? And I was able to get to about 80% of what my ability was. But that was good enough to go play up in Canada. And then I was having like some weird heart stuff going on too. I had like some weird arrhythmia. And I was bartending in Laguna Beach. And I was like kind of lost with what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to play football. I don't know how to quit. I cannot quit. You have to put me down. Mm-hmm. And was like, God, I could probably use some health insurance. Maybe I'll go up to CFL. I heard they have good health insurance. Not necessarily through Canada, but through the team. And so I'm like, okay, shoot, I'll just go do it, And I kind of flew myself to these like super ghetto tryouts. Like I went to one down in Louisiana, and God bless them, there were these guys out there, and I could throw the ball too a little bit, so I was throwing the ball to help out because there's no quarterbacks there. And one guy's like, man, my kid's got to eat, man. My kid's got to eat. I'm like, your kids are going to starve, dude. Because, I love it. I love the determination. No way you're sniffing a football field, not even an arena field. But did some stuff like that, like stayed in like some super sketchy Motel 6s in around the country, tried to get my name out there, at least the CFL, to try to get back into the, maybe have a shot at the NFL. And then fortunately got a call from Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and which is like the Green Bay Packers of the CFL, the huge fan base. So if you're going to play anywhere, that's where you want to play, because there's like 40,000 people in the stands. Fact. And I ended up getting a tryout. Flew up there. Ended up having a great workout. Was playing literally the next week, like a couple days later. That's just how it works, right? And ended up going into the game. Was a little rusty, but still hit like a couple of really good balls. And it was enough to get the other guy released. Yeah. And so then I ended up get on this team, and luckily for me, this team was like awesome. They were really good. They had a great chemistry. Sometimes you get on any team organization, and I was in Toronto. Actually, hold up, I was in Toronto the year before. Same thing. I needed health insurance. I totally forgot about Toronto, because I got there, opening kickoff. I won the job, even won it for kicking, because normally as an American you have to kick too, and I dislocated the heck out of my shoulder on the opening kickoff. Hit a beautiful deep right kick. Everybody said, cool, we scheduled a deep right kick. We're all going to go left right now. So I'm running full speed, and I hit this, like, he had to be juiced up, like Canadian fullback looking dude running like a 4.5. And I just hit him, boom, shoulder pop right out. And I was like, something's weird, my arm feels really low. And then took me in, 3 people, basically did the whole like foot on the thing in the body, and after 20 minutes figured it out and got it into place, and then played the rest of the game. But I spent the whole year in IR, so I kind of forgot about that. Okay. And then so went up to Canada, had some success. We were on a Grey Cup team, so we played in the Super Bowl of Canada. Okay, just dope. Went up to Edmonton, played in like -4 weather. Not as cool, but still cool. And just had a great time and kind of got rejuvenated. And I was really, disappointed and bitter with football at the time. And so that was really nice to have that. And it was also cool because the Toronto team, I didn't like the chemistry, super cliquey. When I got to Canada, Saskatchewan, like everybody was just really cool. Like the whole team had a good cohesive unit, And the next year we lost a bunch of Canadians, and suddenly my head was in the chopping block. But I was performing in camp, but then I had like a weird day where I kicked the ground and tore my labrum. And I just like would spend the whole week doing nothing, playing the game. It just wasn't sustainable. So eventually, like that labrum, it's like losing the lining of your underwear. It's gone. So, and then I once again from there went down to Vegas as bartending, and then I got into Hale, and then Hale brought me to Denver. That's what finally got me out here in 2015. And then between spending time between here and LA and shooting commercials, going to thespian classes, getting in touch with my emotions, my improv, having some success with a couple national commercials. I finally came back to Denver full time once the pandemic went down. So yeah, here we are. I'm on the sofa. Hey-o, let's go.
Cool. And I remember it was like the first, like you had like just joined the team, I guess, in January. And then you went and shot the Wendy's commercial right afterwards. And then literally you like half the team is hanging out at Matt's house for the Super Bowl. We're all watching it. You and Meg come over. Was that the same? You came by? No, you came by a different
time. We came by
right?
for a MMA fight.
Okay. But like right after that, I was at Matt's house for the Super Bowl. And like you're literally on the TV for that Wendy's commercial. And I was like, there's Eddie, like, oh my God, like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And everyone, that was pretty wild. But you were like the perfect person for that commercial.
What's funny is like that. One thing good about the whole lockdown was commercials went remote, and so I did that all on my cell phone in my, place, in my office.
Okay.
And even the callback. And what was crazy is they have the callback, your phone's up there, and you're looking at all the other people in the waiting room. And I'm like, dude, there's no way I'm going to get this. That guy looks like such a better blacksmith. That dude is this one Italian dude who I see in everything. He looks great, too. He's got a full blacksmith outfit.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, God, like, whatever. I'm just going to do it, And ended up doing it, and they liked what I did, and you kind of put your own stamp on it, right? And one thing I felt like for me was I always did okay with improv type stuff, more the comedic, and I ended up getting it, and I was like, sweet, and I had to like be on a plane just a few days later, and they literally told me within a few hours, and I told them I was in LA, and so I had to fly there. Take a Rona test. I don't want this to get flagged. Had to take a Rona test by 5:00, so I heard at like 1. No, heard at like 11:30. Had to jam to DIA, jump on a flight, fly into LA at rush hour traffic, and then go from LAX up to like Hollywood for the only place that was still available. And they kept it open for me to do a quick little nasal swab. And if I would have not passed that, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So you got to get lucky there too.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, everybody on set caught it though. Even though they had like double mask and everything, I'm like, get that out of here, But everybody's like wearing double mask and like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, dude, I got a flame right here, I'm cooking up this Wendy's burger, this chicken sandwich. Let's go. And sure enough, we did it, and I didn't really know what we were shooting until I got there. And it was cool because the place where we shot it at was in Burbank, and it was the guy who makes all the swords for all the movies. And so he makes all the different, like I think the movie was like Master and Commander, right? Like all these cool swords. He's a true blacksmith.
Yeah. So
it was his actual workspace. And, they rented it out. We got in there, and, I looked at the call sheet. I'm like, is it just me in here? Because I didn't know. I thought I was maybe going to be in the background, like a quick little blip, throwing a hammer. They didn't really tell me. And then we get in there, and I'm like, dude, this is just me today. This is awesome. Let's go. And sure enough, I was like, I think this is going to come out like during the Super Bowl, And sure enough, it did. And we were up in Breckenridge at Cabin Juice, hanging out, having a good time, and saw it come on. I was like, oh, nice. And it was fun. It was cool. Those are, for one day of work, not a bad time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome, man. So getting onto the topic of real estate, you've done a lot of cool stuff. And what do you think has helped you the most with your skill set of doing the thing when it comes to helping buyers, helping sellers, all the stuff that real estate entails?
Yeah. So, I think really that if I were to look at an agent and go, wow, that person's really got a great book of business, I think it just comes down to their relationships. Like, how good of a relationship person are you? And I'm not from Denver. When I worked here, a lot of my friends left because we were all seasonal, right? And so one thing I like about and rope me back in if I get on a tangent, but meeting new people, which we have the ability to do through the company, through our lead source, right? Fostering those relationships. But for me, it's easy. I come from a customer service background where we're working with an insurance company who doesn't answer the phone. We got to fight with them to get the money. Everything's documented, even the customer's car. Not only do we have to fix it, it has to look great when we bring it back. We also have to manage their expectations. The insurance company's making it as difficult as possible to get paid on that deal and trying to make you look like a bad guy. So being able to understand how to have those conversations with a client, keep them in the loop so they don't get pissed off and let the insurance adjuster turn them against you, right? And that's a pretty long process. And then there's also a sales and marketing component to that too, where you're trying to get attention. And I did that for the company that we had. We ended up selling that company, and unfortunately I wasn't part of that sale. Okay. I also don't know if I'd be in real estate. But I took those skills from that business, and also probably even from the service industry, and just providing excellent customer service, right? Like, what can I do to make this client feel good? How can they trust me? Can I provide a level of service that makes them feel good? Like right now, I've got 3 people that are out of state buying. So I have to go out there, I have to FaceTime, I have to shoot a video, I have to point out things, almost try to talk them out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, the neighbor's house looks like it's falling down. They got a weird, creepy doll out front in the yard, whatever, And, because they're trusting me with a huge purchase,
Yeah.
like millions of dollars. So I have to be able to convey that trust to them, and then, just provide that excellent customer service. I don't think, I'm not doing heart surgery. I'm not moving mountains. I'm not even managing their fund. But I am trying to make sure that this is a huge investment for them. And when they do go into a property, I'm providing as many different contractor bids so they know if we have an issue with inspection, right? Not trying to make sure they don't overpay, advocating for them on their behalf, just making sure, like I had to go wire somebody's back gate shut because they're in Miami. I said, hey, you're buying a house out of state for your daughter. The transaction doesn't end when this closes. I'm still your guy.
Yeah.
So let me know I can help. It's raining. I'm out there wiring the thing shut. And I think that's the biggest thing with real estate is just those skills of being available, answering the phone, and just being on top of it.
Yeah.
Because, and then obviously when you get in the deal, being able to negotiate, which has just been tough the last couple of years. Because I don't care. I mean, if we lose the deal, so be it. But you know how it is. You got to sit there and talk to people and make sure that they put their best foot forward. Because then if something does go south, at least they put their best foot forward, right? They didn't hold anything back. But in this market, you've just got to, most folks aren't willing to walk away from the deal because it's so hard to get another house.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that and negotiate from a place of strength, but also still keep the deal alive?
Yeah.
I
understand what you're saying 100%. I just terminated a deal that was originally a FaceTime tour, and then buyer flies here for inspection, just find all this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
But we actually terminated it, and we just made an offer on a new place.
Cool.
So hopefully they're right back under contract, and they're here right now too to see the new property. So I know what you're going through, but when you first started, I was kind of your coach, helping you learn everything. So we spent a ton of time together, and I think a couple things help you be successful. Everything that you touched on there, but some things you probably don't even realize, but you're even kill at all times. And I think you're and people are gonna notice this, but you're very even toned with everything. Don't get too excited about stuff. Which I think in terms of your clients being able to trust you, that's super valuable. To know that you're being even headed about everything, right? You're not getting super emotional when things like that happen. And then the other thing I was thinking as you were kind of telling your story, I wonder if the sports psychology stuff helped you out when it comes to real estate. Not getting in your own head and things like that. I don't know. Have you thought about that at all?
It's an interesting take, right? Because for me, I know when my mental space is the best towards the end of my career, even when I was still 80% of what I could probably do. I smoothed out most of it, but I couldn't still get to 100%. I just was comfortable with the fact of I'm going to go out here and I'm going to do everything I can do. And if that doesn't work, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't play out, then so be it. I did everything I can do. I'm going to relax, give myself the best possibility to execute on what I need to do. And if it doesn't work out, and so be it, I can deal with that.
And I think that nails it, right? In real estate, your job, you're working for the client, and at some point you've done everything that you can do, and then it's on them to decide if they want to move forward on the house or not, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many conversations that I have with other agents on the team where it's hey, you did everything that you can do. You relayed all the information to your client. The deal terminated. Move on to the next one, right? And I think a common theme of the podcast has been you're handling rejection, you're handling defeat a lot in real estate.
Oh yeah.
So exactly what you just said. It's you're able to handle those times because you went through that in the past, right? And you handled the adversity, but you knew that you did everything that you could do, and it's, you move on to the next one, right? You can't dwell on those situations, and I think that's really with like leads and things like that allows you to have the right mindset to be successful, because if you're closing at 10%, you've got 9 out of 10 people telling you no or terminating or something 15%. Happening. Yeah, 15%. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you what mine's at right now. But,
I know, you're the liar right
now. Mine's pretty high right now, but I haven't claimed many leads. I've been working a lot of referrals, so
sure.
I've been able to put more time into the leads I've gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something else that you said, so I'm watching this show called Suits right now. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's about lawyers in New York City.
It's been a while, but I used to watch that a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, and they do a lot of negotiating, and something you said earlier was like, you'd have to put you down in order to give up, right? And I think, that's something that you bring to the table as well. Is like you're never gonna give up. Like, yes, there's an aspect of like you've done everything you can do, but like you're not gonna give up, right? And
yeah.
I think that's important to have success. And this show, like when they're negotiating, right? They're like they don't take no for an answer, and like obviously it's a show and they're doing a lot of stuff that isn't realistic a lot of times.
Sure.
But I think in real estate too, right? It's like I'm never going to give up until a couple of things happen. Either my client gives up, right, because I'm fighting for them and it's up to them, or there's nothing else that I can do, right? And I think that's 2 points that you've kind of driven home with your things that have happened to you, and then your mentality on how you run your business. But you're having a ton of success, and I love seeing it, man. Kind of become our evergreen specialist.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I've literally like said that to clients before, like, hey, my partner Eddie's going to help you out. He's our evergreen specialist. And yeah, how do you do it up there with no cell phone signal? I was showing up there recently, and I was like, I had to drive like back to cell phone signal just so I could get to the next property. And it was like half a mile, but I had to drive 10 miles just to get.
Oh yeah. No, it's certain areas up there you just don't have any service. And like I tell people, like I'm probably not gonna be able to FaceTime you because I already know it's like this area has no service.
Yeah.
Unless they're cool and leave the Wi-Fi code, which happens 1 out of 100 times.
I thought about asking that before, like.
But I don't want to tell anybody, like, because I was coached up on that when I first got into it. I had a couple veteran agents be like, "Oh, your clients are in town? Yeah. Thank you for the well over asking offer, but we're just not, they're not here. We had probably offered like a couple hundred over, like even the second offer. I'm like, I'm sorry, do you not like money? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But I just have to conceal that,
Yeah.
I'm pretty straightforward I'm probably a little too straightforward sometimes, but I found that there's just, for my clients, I have to advocate a certain way.
Yeah.
And I have to tell a little bit of a story to help that deal sometimes go through.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I never lie to them about it, but I make sure that it never comes up of like, were your clients there? My clients love the place.
Yeah.
Right? Even though they were looking at it through a screen.
Yeah.
It's like I showed them, I was honest with them, I told them about the weird doll in the yard next door, right?
Same thing.
And you have to do that, right? Because you're advocating for your client. They want to buy the house, right? Regardless of if they saw it yet in person or not. And the way we work with Zillow, right? There's a large majority of my business comes from people that are, sitting at home in California, and they want to see a property, right? So it's my job to get them in to see the house.
Here at NAV Real Estate, we bring the Rockies to you.
That's how it works. Cool, man. So one question that I've been asking on the podcast, what's the weirdest thing you ever saw in a showing?
What is the weirdest thing I've ever saw in a showing? Okay, so this is after the fact. This deal just closed.
Okay.
And client of mine, she loves historic, homes, and we found something about as historic as it gets, 1890 something, and beautiful brick. I mean, it's really cool. But it's a condo, and it's getting sold by the owner, who, so far we're under contract now, so it's kind of a showing, but it's going to be after the fact, like a second showing inspection type. And they typically, I've had buddies go, well, why don't the real estate agents just let people talk to each other? I go, that's a great point. I get it. You're a level-headed person. Maybe that's not good for everybody. And sure enough, the agent was like, hey, let's have our clients meet to figure this deal out, because we had an HOA deadline, and there was a parking space, but it wasn't accounted for in the survey. And there's also like a declaration amendment that just, when we read it, just didn't make sense, and so it raised some red flags. So we go to meet there, and we meet this guy, and he lives half the time here, half the time in a desert town. I'm just gonna say that. And he's a prime example of why you don't have your clients meet sometimes. Great for us. Probably worked against them. And he was a wild card, I mean, he was like, yeah, it's a favorite bar right here down the street I like to go to, and it's pretty cool, but I don't drink or anything. And then in the meantime, since we showed the house and went under contract, he came into town from his other place of residence, and just took and just destroyed the place with just hoarder type stuff. And there's like an empty tequila bottle we walked by in the house. I'm going, and there's a Modelo in the fridge. I'm like, yeah, but you don't drink or anything, And so, yeah, no, I'm the president of the HOA, and it's an HOA issue. You got a parking spot. It's in the Declaration Amendment. I'm like, yeah, but it's not in writing. Show me where it's at in this map, this condo map. And he was a close talker too. And my client's, young lady, and I think at first he's close talking her. I'm getting a little upset. I'm about to check this dude. And then he comes and close talks me. I'm like, okay, it's just who this guy is. He's just in your face and he's talking to you. And it's like you just knocked on his door and it's been 120 degrees outside in the desert. He's like, what are you doing here? That's kind of the vibe, right? And sure enough, he walks us over. We go to the architect who's going to build this garage for him, which is just for him, which is going to totally blow all the parking spots. And we go over there and we're talking to the architect, and then he goes out of the office after, and I knew something was up because everybody in this office was looking at us like, oh, that dude's here. So-and-so's here. Oh, this will be good. Go in there. My client's talking to the architect too. Great guy. Over in Lohi. Oop, probably too much information. And we go over there, and the builder, architect. And then the dude steps out of the office after introducing us, and he goes, hey, by the way, there are other people who just bought there a couple months ago, came here looking for the exact same thing. And also, we had this whole garage built. He hasn't even paid for it yet. And I'm like, interesting. Great info. Can we borrow this survey? I end up sketching a survey spot, parking spots, got it recorded with the county. Killer. But that was probably the weirdest thing I've seen. It's just who is this dude? And then he lives in one of the units, But it worked against him, and luckily for my client, and that was probably the weirdest showing because I just hadn't met a seller like that yet.
Yeah.
And that was kind of odd. Otherwise, nothing too crazy. I follow the realtor meme channels on Instagram and stuff, and I haven't seen anything cool like that yet. I saw your house that you talked about.
Yeah. Way
down there. That was pretty unique. But I haven't seen anything else too crazy. I've seen a couple weird alien spaceship looking places up in Evergreen, where they had a indoor pool on the third floor, but now that pool was cracked and leaking into the house, which is sweet.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing too crazy. I see a lot of cool wildlife when I'm up in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, was the listing agent upset that you had this?
He had no control over this guy.
Okay.
This dude was a wild card, man.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. The guy was great. The agent was cool. I hope we do business in the future. And that's one thing I really try to do is always, no matter how, how some of these agents can be, man. No matter how tight in the shorts they can be or how snooty, I always try to keep a great relationship because I'm getting to that point in my business where I'm seeing everybody again, and I just want to make sure we have a good relationship for future deals. I got one now I might do an off-market deal for one of my clients, and but just to rope that back in, what was I saying? Sorry. I have ADD like a mother did.
You
boom,
you
squirrel.
want to keep the relationship with the agent.
keep the relationship going because he's cool, and I'm sure we'll do business in the future. He just couldn't, like, he still owes me a plumbing invoice, that he's probably trying to track down.
Yeah.
Oh, and the seller started doing all the work before I sent the objection, and I was like, hey, I want a professional to do all this. He's in there doing it. Oh, I'm a great contractor. I'm like, BS, dude.
Yeah.
Sure you are. Sure. Why don't you work buttoning up your pants, dude, okay?
Yeah.
Put a belt on.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For coming on. NAV Real Estate.
Product placement. Enter my promo code, Eddie Johnson, for 15% extra towards me.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate Eddie coming on the podcast today. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next video soon. Peace.